So our first topic is, what is internet? The World Wide Web, right? We all know the full form of www, but what exactly is it? So in simple language, it is basically the connection of all these computers all around the world, right? It connects all these computers regardless of the distance between them. So how is it useful, right? So it facilitates large distance communication. I'm sorry for the spacing mistake, but yeah. So you can talk with someone from India with, like, for example, you can talk with someone who's overseas, regardless of your distance between them, right? So it's very easy to communicate over large distances because of the internet. Then again, you can share data, you can share files with ease regardless of where you are located. The third is, you can also search things, right? You can get knowledge, get resources, get data on it. The internet has all these websites which share with you all these resources for free, right? So it allows you to access all this information, basic functionalities of the internet, but it's so powerful, right? Communication, sharing files, and getting data, it's so important that it has become impossible for us to live without it in our daily lives, right? So that is what internet is. That's how powerful internet is. Now, we talked about, in the last point, I said this term websites, right? So what exactly is websites? How do we create them? That is what we'll talk about next. So what is web development, right? So creating these websites, right, on the World Wide Web or for a personal or private network, which is called intranet, is basically web development. Okay, creating these sites. Now in web development, you'll get these terms, you'll get to hear these terms, clients and servers. So what exactly are these, right? Are just basically devices, okay? Devices, computers, softwares. Clients is basically you who is accessing or using the device to serve the internet. That is client. Now server is a computer or a software which is which you don't have access to, which is something that responds to your requests. We'll talk about this in a bit more detail in the next slide. Okay, so this is the basic flow of client and servers, the front end and the back end. Client is called the front end as well, and the servers are called back end. Okay, let's take a look at this model in a little bit more detail. All right, so what happens is, these are the devices that you use to access internet, right? It can be any of these devices, that's fine. You see the website, when you go on the browser, when you go to Google website, you see the search bar, you see how I'm feeling lucky today. You see your Google account on the top right. So that's the UI, that's the user interface that the Google has designed, right? That's the front end part, right? The part that you see. That is basically the front end, the client side, the UI, the user interface. You can call it whatever you want, but that's what this is, the things that you see on these devices, right? Now, let's say that you clicked on a button, right? The button was something like, it said, I want details about a movie, right? So you wanted details about a movie, you click the button, you expected to see the results, the details of that movie, but the details are not stored on the front end, right? You have it stored somewhere in a database, in a maybe in a hard drive, a normal hard drive, but that is not here. So what happens is, when the user clicks on this button, a request is sent to the backend. You don't see this happening. This is not something that you can see on the front end side. This is not something that the user can see. This is the backstage part of what is happening behind everything, right? So when the user clicks this button, what happens is, a request is sent to the backend, right? This backend is a computer like this, a powerful computer if it's a big organization, or just a normal computer, right? Or a software that responds to such requests. Now it can respond in different way. Let's suppose that this website asks the user for login for any kind of information, and if it's not, then let's say the user is not logged in and he presses this button, and when the request is sent to this backend, what it will do is, it will give back a response. It will say that user is not logged in, so first let the user log in, and then he will get access to the data. So now let's say you log in after that, right? Now you are logged in, and when you press this button again, the movie button, right? So what will happen is now the backend, it will receive that request. It will process that, yes, the user is logging. It is that user is verified. He or she is in our database, right? Now, after that verification, now it will serve that request, right? So the request for this movie, now this backend will request this data from the database, right? This is also part of the backend. So for the data, the movie's data is stored in our database. It will take that data, it will come back to the backend, and this backend will now send this data back as the response to the request. So this is how client and server communicate for every request that is sent, for every interaction the user creates, right? So this is basically what a client server model is, this communication which happens. And these requests, this communication between client and front end, the model is client server model, but these requests that are being sent, this communication happens with what is called an API. This process is called an API. This communication process is facilitated by APIs, right? So it's not a complicated, it's just a term, right? For example, if you are in a restaurant, right, when you order something, a waiter communicates between you and the chef, the kitchen, right? So you as always are the front end. The waiter here is the API and the kitchen is the backend. That's a very famous example in this model, right? So that is basically the client server model. I won't go through this this text part because I've already explained this in a detail, I believe, in a much more detail, I believe, in the last slide, right?